Now,
Team Kenya is present.
The delegate from Team Angola is here. The other delegate is on his way.
okay. So Kenya, Angola is able. Rwanda is not here. Any other theme apart from Kenya and Angola, please? Not yet. My name Bamio Dada, chair of this honorable parliamentary session, declaring the parliamentary session for today open by call to order. We already called to order because we are here together and we have all agreed to proceed. Opening reflection roll call. 2 days ago, we began this amazing interactive research on behalf of Africans and for Africa. 10 teams initially put forward their policy recommendations. 6 of the teams actively participated in this interactive parliamentary session. And now, the concluding day, out of the 3 teams that moved forward, we have 2 teams here, which confirms the quorum for the proceedings of today's session. Mr. Jesululua, or another member of the organizing team, I would like one person to move for the motion of adopting today's agenda while I second, and then we can proceed straight up.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Otade Jislulua Oluwatosin. Having formed quorum and agenda had been established, I move the motion for the continuation of this parliamentary session. Thank you.
I, Bamio Dada, chairman of the honorable parliamentary session, second this motion, and thereby we officially begin with a recap of the previous day. Yesterday, we had elaboration on Team Angola's policy document, which was recommending a committee to be set up by the African Space Agency to be in charge of very definite goals as it affects Africans. Also, Team Kenya had similar recommendations for the African Space Agency to set up a subcommittee faced with the responsibilities, or saddled, pardon me, with the responsibilities of identifying and mitigating certain risks. I wouldn't want to speak personally for anyone since I have to maintain a neutral party from the International Space Station. But I want to say something brief. Yesterday, while we were in the middle of this interactive research, a news came that a 500 kg space debris fell into a county in Kenya. It was so disheartening because right in the middle of where we are deliberating how to involve Africa in major decision makings that will safeguard our space and therefore our geographical space on Earth, we are experiencing this calamity. Strong points are coming from different school of thoughts, but like we all know, the damage has already been done, and it's only a passive solution that will be found. Our thoughts are with the people of that county in Kenya. I hope nobody gets injured. The name of the county is Maukeni County in Kenya. A 500 kg of space debris fell onto a village in Maukeni County. Our thoughts are with them, and we hope there is emergency relief. Thank you very much. Mr. Commissioner of the African Parliament, would you like to give us a brief remark before we proceed into the sessions? On this call, we have Team Angola and we have Team Kenya. Someone's hand is up. Okay. I would also like to introduce my co-chair for today and rapporteur, Mr. Thaddeus. Please, are you on this call with us at this point in time? Mr. Thaddeus is probably going to join us soon. Mr. Commissioner, I see breakout sessions. Team Angola, Team Kenya, Team Rwanda. So I think we're all familiar with this. We know how to proceed. Originally, as planned, we'll go into these breakout sessions for brief minutes, about 10 minutes, to just focus on the strong points that will be including in the major recommendations for the African Space Agency, the African Union Scientific and Technical Research Committee, which has saddled the responsibility of evaluating this before hopefully it will be adopted as valid policy recommendations coming from African youths, students, and space enthusiasts. Before proceeding into these breakout sessions, I want to hear from the African Parliament of the Futures Commissioner, because by the time we'll be coming back to this group from the breakout sessions, we'll be proceeding straight up into the finalization of our 3 days parliamentary session. And we'll be moving on by adopting one of the policy recommendations from the teams while supporting or criticizing the pros and cons. But at the end of these breakout sessions, we will be adopting a consensus position and then closing the ceremony. Are you now here with us, Mr. Commissioner of the African Parliament? Not joined yet. It's on this call. Mr. Barnabas. Okay, Mr. Tosin, Mr. Ajisululu, I think these breakout sessions might not really be necessary much since we have. Okay, we still need to go there. It will just be nice to hear from the commissioner before breaking into these sessions. Otherwise, there is no other way to address us all together. Adesola Susan, Team Egypt, you're welcome. Moise, Team Angola, you're welcome. Sarah, Team Kenya, you're welcome. Oluwatoni Adegoke, Team Angola, you're welcome. Just hanging on a little for the commissioner to join and say something before we break out into these sessions. Okay, and I'm also being informed right now that there is a video from one of our industry experts that should be played after the breakout sessions before we now go into the conclusion. But I would prefer the video is played now while everybody settles in on their documents and how to proceed into the breakout sessions. I think that will be the best thing. Otherwise, there will not be any way to come back to this point in time of space to. So, Mr. Jesolo, if we can have the video now, or what do you suggest? Yes, thank you very much. In the meantime, the team should please note that they will be going into a breakout session after this video and specifically weighing in on your strong points. We need you to come out of the breakout sessions with your strong points. We've gone through your document, we've done some gradings, but we need the strong points to come out because we will be rating your presentations on these strong points. Hopefully, there will not be anybody to rebuild or to counter your strong points, but we will be moving forward with one policy document to be recommended to the African Union Scientific Technical Research Committee after this session today. So please weigh in on your strong points and focus on that to present to the general house and the live stream audience as soon as we come back from the breakout session. Thank you. Yes, we can have the video now.
Dan Hawk. I am Native American Iroquois Confederacy. I am a NASA Artemis ethicist. And what I wanted to convey today is that I want to say thank you to Dr. Claire Nelson, who invited me to speak in regards to Space Week 2025. And to give some insights, and basically insights that are unedited, so it's spontaneous issues regarding where we're going to is the moon. So the United Nations basically states that space is for everyone, space is for all, and that space is a human right, and that that for indigenous populations and tribal populations, that space is a right of self-determination. Now, again, we're going into space where we have a tremendous amount of orbital debris. So equality is not as what we would think it would be, because now the underrepresented nations, as an example, would be going into space when we have a tremendous amount of space debris, and we continue to add to that at every launch. The Torres Strait people sued Australia in regards to how they monitor how they are able to mitigate climate change, as an example, and sea level rise. But one of the remedies that the Torres Strait people have is to be able to place their own satellite in orbit, to be able to monitor the resources, to be able to make to get firsthand knowledge, to be able to make specific decisions about how their people are going to survive into the future regarding climate change. So here's an opportunity for indigenous populations, Torres Strait, to be able to enter space, to be able to monitor their own resources, and it should be for every indigenous population should have that same opportunity. When we talk about equality, we need to determine something as whether it's subjective or objective. And now, the Mauritius versus UK. That lawsuit is about objectivity, because the tribunal states in 4 elements as to why things can be objective as to being subjective. In other words, instead of drawing a circle around something, you now have a specific opportunity to create measurements upon things so that encroachment is no longer an issue. So, and it is based on, as an example, one of the elements would be the activity of that. So one larger activity would have a larger safety zone, as an example, compared to that of a smaller activity. When it comes to the Outer Space Treaty, there are no amendments that have been declared basically since its inception in 1967. So why is this important? So if we're not able to come together as people to amend the Outer Space Treaty, then the outcome of that is the militarization of space. And that has to do with the large number of countries not being able to come together to agree upon things in order to go to space. in a peaceful way. So that is a separation of peaceful space to that of militarization, is the fact that we don't have the ability, or we are not making the amendments to the Outer Space Treaty as we should. Orbital space debris, as I mentioned a little earlier, is a significant problem, but it's a significant problem, especially for those spacefaring nations that are just now getting into space, or underrepresented peoples who want to get into space, that they're going into a space at a time where there's a remarkable amount of space debris, which then increases the probability of collision. And so in that respect, space is not equal, right? And now we come to the moon, right? So it's all about the moon. So who speaks for the moon? So I wrote basically a statement about who speaks for the moon, and of course I did that. But what I'm saying here is that is as underrepresented peoples, or the spacefaring nations that want to get into the moon, want to go to the moon, right? So the question is, why should we? Okay, so once we're there, right? So it's not about should we, it's that we are going to the moon, and so it's about representation. So as a native person, if I'm standing on the moon, I can see things that are happening that are maybe not to our liking, right? So, especially, let's say, with space mining as an example. But the point being is that if we are not at the space table, then we have no say. So, in this case, if there is space mining and we don't agree with that, or we have people who are buried on the moon and we don't agree with that, it's necessary that we are at the table to make comments, to be able to participate, to be able to see things that, oh, you're polluting, no, you're not polluting, or we have all this, we took Earth and we have Earth orbit and it has orbital space debris. Now we have orbital space debris around the moon, and that's not acceptable. So whatever the situation is with acceptability, right? And evolve in the lunar surface technologies, and being able to create a community of peoples on the moon for all of mankind, as the United Nations basically states that it is for all, and so we need to be a part of that. And thank you very much for inviting me. Please contact Dr. Claire Nelson if you have any questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that video. It was educative, just like our industry experts from yesterday. Okay, now we can proceed. My co-chair, Mr. Thaddeus, please, can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit brief background history? I know you are a lawyer and a space enthusiast. Please, can you jump on now, Mr. Thaddeus, my co-chair?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for introducing me. But however, I will have to argue I'm not a lawyer. I am a law graduate. Everything
We are in the
says, you know.
future. Do you know this simulation is in the year 2030? So, by God's grace, all things being equal, by the year 2030, you could be a son in space law.
Amen. Well,
Thank you
I
very
do
much.
have an interest in space law, because for me, I feel space law to be a condensed form of international law and human rights joined together. And it's impossible to do space law without taking a look at this other side. And I'm particularly interested in the structure of this competition, our bringing the Africanness to space. And I was keenly listening to the earlier video, where he had said that if we don't bring our issues to fore, Nobody's going to give us a place at the table. If we're not at the table, we are discussing, nothing is going to matter. So I think it's very important, and what we are doing now counts to the future. We don't wait for the future to come for us. We start acting now to the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and it's an honor to be sitting with you.
Thank you very much for that. Yes. As we all know, Africa used to, in Nigerian slangs, Africa used to carry last when it comes to global groundbreaking technologies like 5G, like the internet. I mean, all of those things eventually reach Africa after trials and errors and perfections by the developed countries. But for space, which happens to be the most latest global innovation and technological groundbreaking amazing development, Africa has not been carrying last. As a matter of fact, in the International Astronautical Federation, African member states populated more than, I think, 15%. Also, in the recently concluded, we have African programs, African space programs, African spacefaring nations churning out a whole lot of active involvement. And this has never been done before in any field. So we hope we'll get it right this time around. Also, what we are doing today is the first time it's going to be done in Africa, involving Africans represented by various African universities or themes. So if anybody will be doing this next year, they have to include our research in their literature review. If any one of you is in the final year or in the postgraduate studies, you reach out to me. We'll find a way to fine-tune this for you to be able to publish or quote in a certain sense. And finally, when this document is out, the policy documents should be on the archives of the African Union Scientific and Technical Research Commission, also at the African Space Agency. Like we know, our two teams are proposing that the African Space Agency should create committee like a subgroup under the main event that will look into some of the issues that we are clamoring for today. So it could be adopted in the next sittings of the African Parliament, of the African Space Agency in Egypt. Thank you very much. That being said, Mr. Commissioner of the African Parliament of the Future, are you here with us now and all the technical issues being resolved, Mr. Barnabas? If Mr. Barnabas is on this call, please speak to us before we go into our breakout sessions. Let us know the purpose of what we are doing in the breakout sessions and how soon we should be back here to conclude. Should be done in less than an hour if all things go fine. Okay. Barnabas is passively active right on this call. He had sent me a message from technical glitch. So, sir, we can proceed now into the breakout sessions. Team Rwanda is not on this call. Can I see anybody? I see Sarah from Kenya, Moise from Angola, Susan from Egypt, Adigoke from Angola, and Shaile from Kenya, definitely. So please, we'll proceed into the breakout sessions, deliberate on our strong points. If we have a team that didn't, a university team representing a country that didn't make it to this round, please, you have the right to criticize or support the strong points of any of these teams. In this case, on this call now, we are breaking into Team Angola and Team Kenya, except for the host. Every other person will break into Team Angola and Team Kenya. Hopefully, you are already familiar with your policy documents, but you're all going into these breakout sessions for 10 minutes. We'll have the speakers just brief you on what they personally think is their strong points and what they personally think is their weak points, so that when we converge back, we can all make a consensus decision as to which team's policy recommendations will be moving forward with. Thank you very much. We can go into the breakout sessions now. Some people are still in a breakout session. I see Mr. Commissioner, you are in Team Rwanda. What are you doing there? Everybody should be back on this main group where let us finalize what uh,
So, good afternoon, everyone. I received some report of issues with the breakout room for Angola. Uh, yeah, Angola representatives are they or are they text?
Sorry about that brief. Who was in the breakout session of Team Angola? Can you please feed us back on the situation?
Okay, I'm a delegate from Angola. We did not have any
Okay,
other delegates in the room. The time we had delegates, we didn't have observers. The time we had observers, we didn't have delegates. So there was no way we
okay, I
could do
get it.
negotiations.
But were you able to weigh in on your options by yourself for yourself? You know what I mean? Because this next 10 minutes issue we'll have is actually supposed to lean towards the direction of accommodating criticism and rebuttals and also emphasizing your strong points. So even if there was nobody else to tackle you in Nigerian terms, if you are sure of your strong point, I think this is the time to put your best foot forward and also to note what will be the benefit if the African Space Agency should be adopting your policy as the way to go. Don't see it as a bad thing.
Okay, sir, but hope it won't affect us in the voting process.
No, this particular breakout session, it's not going to affect in the rating process because we, like we said earlier, no winning or losing team. We want all of these teams that participated in this research to come together and present one very solid recommendation that even the African Space Agency or any international organization will regard us as a force to reckon with. We wouldn't want to put the not so good one out as the main thing. So whatever team's policy will be adopting, putting forward is just front of is the front end of this our research. Which means if somebody else from the United States, from China, from India was supposed to find something wrong with it, we've already done that among ourselves. Ghana must have made Kenya's policy better. Angola's policy is better because people from Nigeria and Senegal made their policy documents more rounded. So there is no winning, there is no losing. It's just we would like to put our best foot forward for the sake of the global audience. But within us, next year, next 2 years, every other research that will be in terms of lunar governance, analog simulations, will be referencing this as their literature research, literature review. Thank you very much. That being said, Mr. Commissioner, if you're on this call, please, are you okay with what I just said now? And then I'll have my co-chair prepare the two teams for their speaking time.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mr. Co-chair, can you just prep the two teams on what they need to do? Okay.
With you,
Okay, your network is kind of breaking up, Barnabas. I can't hear you. I'm not sure if other people can.
Yeah, we can proceed. We can proceed with that. We can proceed with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Team Angola, do not feel that it's going to affect you negatively. Mr. Co-chair, please prep them on to the next session and let Team Kenya present first because they had more delegates and rebuttals in the breakout session. So Team Angola can leverage on that next. 10 minutes each, as usual. My co-chair, are you still with us? Thaddeus.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, sir.
I'm sorry, it must have been a problem with my earphones. So, as I was saying, Team Angola, please do not feel oppressed that no delegates came around during the beginning of the negotiations in the breakout room. It will not affect you negatively. So please, everyone should pay attention and to take as much opportunity as they can. So this process that we're about to go into now is not much, is not very voluminous. We already have your policies. You've already submitted it to us. So we have it in a hard document. But we want you as individuals, as persons, to deliver your arguments, the places that you feel are your strongest points, the places that sell. And it also help if you can predict the other side of what they may be the counter arguments to your position, and you can rope it in if you understand what I'm saying. And then we have 10 minutes for you to deliver your rebuttal. Team Kenya will go first, and it will be followed by Angola. So please feel free. Remember, we are not fighting. We are trying to build up everything into one holistic idea. So as much as you want to provide information and remember that nobody's idea is useless. The next person's idea is as good as yours. So, yes, Team Kenya, the floor is yours. Thank you. Or Mr. Chairman, do you have anything else to add before they proceed?
I would just like to say they should emphasize more on, like for Team Kenya now, they had rebuttals, they had counter arguments. So you can just mention that because there are live viewers and people who will be streaming this event after today, even next year, who might not have had what happened in the breakout session, but you can just mention to the call what was raised and how you were able to adopt, or if it was already in your original present policy position. If it wasn't, how you plan to accommodate it, and then that's it from my end. Thank you.
All right.
Can
Thank
go
you
ahead
very
now.
much. Team Kenya, are you in the house?
Yes, Team Kenya is present.
Yes, we are.
All right.
We're just
Begin.
seeking clarification. Are we doing a presentation of our policy paper because not everyone might have read it, or are we just providing the rebuttals or the suggestions that were given regarding the policy paper?
Well, as I stated earlier, we already have your policy papers, so we have a general idea of what we are going to present. We want you to present a more or less a summarization of what you feel are your strong points, the amendment that you might have made to them in the breakout room following the negotiations, and to offer a rebuttal. Is this clear?
Yes, it is clear. Thank you.
No problem. And you have 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. This is
Thank
Bora
you.
Sarah, the first delegate for the delegation of Kenya. We should begin with our strong points that we came up with in the breakout rooms. Just to note, in the breakout room, we had the delegation of Egypt and the delegation of Ghana, after which the delegation of Egypt stepped out of the session. Our strong points are, for one, the creation of an African lunar charter, in which is going to govern which is coordinated by the African Space Agency, which will formalize the principles of non-appropriation, transparency, and sustainability in all lunar activities. To operationalize this, we're going to have the Lunar Commons Negotiation Forum, and it will bring together all African states to build consensus, mediate disputes, and have peaceful cooperation. We also have proposed the creation of an African Orbital Commons Observatory, which will track and mitigate the space debris through a Pan-African Orbital Debris and Traffic Management Network. Kenya is no stranger to space debris. As noted, in 2025, January, we had a 500-kilogram debris that landed in the county of Machakos, and which is important to note that there were no casualties, there were no injuries or deaths that arose from that, and the Kenya Space Agency acted swiftly in recovering the debris. Therefore, Kenya is not a stranger to having debris in our country, and we do have experience with how to deal with the debris. And owing to that, we would suggest that the African Orbital Commons Observatory to be based in Kenya because of its geographical advantage at the equator, which is ideal for satellite monitoring and data sharing hubs. We had the third point that we develop a Pan-African Lunar Ethics Charter, and here we had the delegation of Ghana weighing in. The delegates mentioned that we should include an African Space Systems and Orbital Integrity Authority to further affirm the principle of non-appropriation. The delegation of Kenya marked this with our third operative clause that we had established the development of our Pan-African Lunar Ethics Charter. So because of this, we have included the African Space Systems and Orbital Integrity Authority, which is going to reinforce and ensure that the principles in the Pan-African Lunar Ethics Charter are adhered to. We thank the delegation of Ghana for that contribution. As I had mentioned, we are already collaborating in space programs, and the recommendation was well received and has been incorporated. That is for our presentation. And then just a clarification, are we to do rebuttals right now too?
Yes, you should. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll submit on my rebuttals, then my partner will come to
Yes.
also submit on her findings. So the delegation of Angola has presented a passionate call for a unified African framework on orbital debris and lunar governance. However, while we acknowledge their commitment to African sovereignty in space, their policy, though tone, it rests on some flawed assumptions and impractical proposals that risk undermining the true Pan-African progress. For one, the delegation of Angola has omitted the private sectors and academia in its furthering of space exploration. Angola's framework is a state-centric to fault. By excluding private innovators and universities, it risks locking Africa's future to bureaucratic inertia. True sustainability, it comes from a multi-stakeholder ecosystem. So where governments need to regulate and we need academia, researchers, we need private actors to innovate. So a policy that will ignore this synergy, it cannot be sustainable. And Kenya in itself is no stranger to this, I said. Our universities, the University of Nairobi and Machakos University, is being funded to develop our space agencies, and we have launched a nanosatellite from our university. Therefore, because of its omission of private sector and academia, we believe that that is not a well-rounded policy paper. Secondly, its principles and its concepts such as shared heritage and proactive consensus, they are noble, but they're not defined. Without clear operational metrics, these remain aspirational slogans rather than policy tools. Because Africa does not lack principles, we do have principles, but we lack enforceable, funded, and technically grounded action plans. So Angola's moral clarity, it must be matched with technical realism, which their policy paper did not manifest. Africa's destiny, Honorable Chair and delegates, will not be secured by decrees of unity, but by practical collaboration, capacity building, and innovation. We urge this parliament to embrace a governance framework that is flexible, inclusive, and pragmatic, not rigid and idealistic. Let us build a future where Africa leads not only in words, but in workable, measurable policy. Thank you. I yield the time to Shali.
Thank you very much, Speaker Sarah. Sarah, right?
Yes, this
Sarah,
is
can
Sam.
you hear me? Yes, Sarah,
Yes,
can
I
you hear me?
can.
Thank you very much. I listened to your presentations, and I just have a few questions to ask, just for clarity purpose, nothing else.
Yes, Mr.
Can you
Chair.
hear me? Yes.
Yes,
You
go
made
ahead.
a yes, you made a distinction between the plans of Kenya and Angola on the grounds of, correct me if I'm wrong, on the grounds of one being more practical and measurable versus idealistic. Not so.
Yes,
Can you hear
as
me?
well as, yes, the delegate of Kenya did bring that forward, as well as the Angola's omission of academia, including universities and also private sectors. Those two were the points you've raised.
Would you say that there is something wrong with being Africa being idealistic at the time? Or would you say that Africa should not be based on ideals? Do you find anything wrong with ideals in this sense? I have no question with pragmatism. Pragmatism is very, very much important for us to adopt and to follow. But in a sense, would you say that to have ideals, especially as we are here now, pragmatically speaking, we are not yet in space. So what we are doing somehow revolves into the realm of ideals. So that being said, can you not find it somewhat counterproductive to say that something is too idealistic and therefore we should dispose it, we should not venture into it, and we should stick close to ideals? Do you to pragmatics? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, Honorable Chair, I do. And to respond to the question of idealism,
Yes.
no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having ideals. In fact, every great policy, movement, or reform, it begins with ideals. Ideals give direction, purpose, and moral grounding. However,
Yes.
when it comes to policy making, the tension is not from having ideals, but from relying solely on them without a pathway for implementation. So just to break
Oh,
down a bit, the ideals inspire, but strategy is what will sustain those ideals. So the ideals are the why, but we must have the hows together with the ideals. So we cannot just say Africa must get the common heritage of humankind without having a mechanism. Who is going to safeguard it? How is it going to be enforced? How is that going to be funded? So here, when we have that, the ideal will risk to become just poetic, but without power. So their ideals are commendable. We commend the delegation of Angola for that, but they need machinery. We share their moral vision, but we just seek practical roads to reach that moral vision. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your question. I hope I have answered it sufficiently.
yes, you have. Thank you very much. That would be all.
Thank you very much. Over to Team Angola.
Okay,
From the breakout sessions.
good morning, everybody. Please, can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yes, loud and
Yes, yeah,
clear,
Team Angola.
Mr. Adik. Okay,
Okay, so just a bit of context to what I'm going to do. I'll start by summarizing our positions, then give a bit of rebuttals to what was said by Team Kenya, and also try and rebut some of their points. My other delegates um will also chime in after me. So, first, I would like to reassert our principles, the principle of shared heritage and the principle of proactive consensus. I think these are the
Sorry,
principles.
delegation of Angola. I was to speak after my partner. I'm not sure if you're the one taking over or I will speak after you.
Oh, okay, I'm
Oh,
not
okay,
sure.
sir. Sorry to clarify. The Team Kenya's second speaker, right?
I am Team Kenya second speaker, yes.
Yes, please have the space before Team Angola should proceed.
Okay, thank you. Honorable chairs,
Yeah.
distinguished delegates, and guests, to continue on to the strong points that my partner Sarah has made regarding our policy paper. One of our strongest points is our call for a legally binding international framework. So Kenya advocates for enforceable global rules on lunar resource use, environmental protection, and equitable access. So we reference gaps in the Outer Space Treaty and the Moon Agreement regarding the private sector accountability, and highlights the urgence of regulation given the rise of commercial lunar ventures by the Artemis and also the ILRS. And this is very important because it is very necessary to prevent in quotes a Wild West scenario in space, where space is becoming more privatized than ever. And also, one of our other strongest points is our view and our advocacy of ethical framework for lunar governance. So rooting lunar policy in African communal values like Ubuntu, Utu, and Baraza offers a very culturally grounded, inclusive alternative to Western-centric space norms. So this ethical pluralism will strengthen global governance by incorporating diverse traditions, more so African traditions, seeing as we are the African Parliament of the future, and our main reason is to advocate for our own issues. Also, indigenous models of stewardship and consensus building are well suited to managing shared resources like the moon, which again, I would like to reiterate the fact that is not a private entity, but something that belongs to the whole earth. Also, there has been historical success of African diplomatic traditions in conflict resolutions and multilateral cooperation. I will then move to my rebuttal points, but I hope I have been clear on my points so far.
Yes, move on. You still have time.
Okay. So my partner, Delegate Sarah, has mostly exhausted all the rebuttal points we have for Ghana. As Kenya, I'd like to say that we commend Angola's principled stand on the threats of orbital debris and lunar resource capture, and also the demand for action. But Kenya asks for a balance, because boldness without balance risks replicating the very injustices that we seek to escape. We seek for mediation more than mandation. We seek to decentralize with purpose instead of centralization. Angola also calls for mandatory debris protocol, and we agree on the urgency, but we propose the African Orbital Commons Observatory, which will be a continent-wide infrastructure, which will, again, as my partner Sarah said, leverage on the advantage of Kenya being on the equator. And we want to further the point that technical excellence and indigenous wisdom will be more preferred instead of just law, seeing as some of the important values of this African Parliament of the future are regarding that very wisdom. Angola proposes a Pan-African licensing body, but can we really license what we don't understand? And hence why Kenya is instead calling for a moratorium on large-scale lunar mining until it is inclusive and ethical frameworks are in place. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you very much. I just have a few questions for her, and that will be all before we move on. Shirley, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you very much. When you were speaking, you made mention to African-centric models as opposed to Western models, and you said that they have been tested and trusted. So you know that what we are dealing with now is space and outer space treaties and sharing of resources that we have not particularly shared with, using African-centric models before. Could you give us a close example of how African-centric models have been used in sharing land or whatnot, so we can, buy into the idea that it will be successful in space? Did you hear my question?
Yes, I did. So if I got you clearly, you asked if these African-centric models that I've mentioned, like Ubuntu and Baraza and Utu, and if I could give a close example where it works, right?
Yes, so we can have an analogy. If it works here, certainly it will work on the moon, something of that sort.
Okay, so in Rwanda, in Rwanda's pardon me for if I have butchered the pronunciation. In Rwanda's Gakaka courts, they're rooted in indigenous practice. So the meaning of Gakaka is grass in Kinyarwanda, which refers to the informal community gatherings where elders resolve disputes. So in Kenya, this would be like baraza. So their courts are very highly community-led justice, where local citizens are sitting down to hear cases, which emphasize on restorative justice over punitive measures. They also focus on reconciliation. Now, taking this into consideration and taking into consideration things like Ubuntu and Baraza and just the African norms of seeking to come together, not to due to lack for a better word, not to be punitive or whatever, seeking to come together to sit down and listen to negotiations, listen to each other's point of views. I think that would work in space, because as we are doing right now, as previously mentioned, this is a competition where we're looking at someone and saying you have lost or you have won. We're coming together in negotiation to try and see what is best for each and every state and to see how we can incorporate that for the whole of Africa. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing to add. I look forward to hear from Team Angola.
Team Angola, you have the floor.
Someone raised the
Okay,
hand.
it's a pity that I had network issues, so I couldn't hear a bit of the last delegate from Kenya's speech, but I'll make do with what I heard.
You can.
So
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Please, Sarah Bora, you have your hands on. Do you want to say something?
Yes, if I may, Honorable Chair.
Okay, go on.
Thank you. Just to slightly add on the previous chair's question on the principles of Ubuntu, Utu, and Baraza. On the principle of Ubuntu, which in sense is calling for collaboration, this has been manifested by African countries in the space era itself. In 2025, the Kenya, Egypt are collaborating on an African development satellite project where Kenya is going to be designing the electrical power and subsystem, and Egypt is going to host the integration and testing. And in this, we have 6 partners, 6 African countries, which is Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Sudan, and Uganda. So this in itself is a practical and realistic and currently happening manifestation of the principle of Ubuntu, where all these African countries are collaborating to advance our space agenda. Just to add on what the previous delegate said, Shalini. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Team Angola, you have about 15 minutes or more to weigh in on your strong points and also to rebuild what Team Kenya has presented. Thank you very much. You can have the floor now. Have the space now.
okay, thank you, sir. Please, before I continue, please, I'd like to confirm if you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank
loud and clear.
you. Okay, so um, I would like to we're first going to give a strong defense unquote ourselves from the people trying to them. We've asserted our principles already, saying the principle of proactive consensus and the principle of proactive consensus and also the principle of shared heritage. Principle of shared heritage, meaning that we believe that the money is not a new frontier for division, but a shared inheritance, and we want to ensure that the wealth of the cosmos used um is not to entrench the power of others, but also to lift up our continents, as we fear the fact that we might be excluded from the resources that we could get from. We also believe in we're here to act as we believe that Africa should be united in this particular front. So going on to our major points, our first major point is that we manage mitigation countries that we require the creation of a collectively funded African Space Development Fund to finance the space situational awareness hubs. Later on in our speech, we'll talk about the African Space Development Fund, how we intend to fund it, and everything about it. But as said earlier, our first policy or solution is that we mandate for the creation of space situational awareness hubs because it's necessary to protect our assets. Earlier on in our previous meetings, we've talked about the various risks involved with the accumulation of debris in outer space, and we've seen the terrible risks that are involved. And we've also talked about the potential of Kessler syndrome, which is the potential chain reaction that could affect our space resources and satellites. So we've quantified the harm necessary, and that is why it's necessary for us to be able to do this, create the space situational awareness hubs. And our idea for the creation of the space situational awareness hubs is that the space situational awareness hubs should be established in the African Space Headquarters in Egypt and also the South African National Space Agency. This is to ensure balanced continental coverage and also sovereign data access. So that is our first major point. Moving on, I think our second major point, the reason why that is our first major point is because that is a matter that is a pressing issue. I think that is one of our most immediate challenges. So moving on to our second point, we must mandate for the protection of lunar equity. We must absolutely reaffirm the non-appropriation principle. And due to this, we mandate that the African Space Agency establish a Pan-African licensing body. And so this Pan-African licensing body would give licenses for probably countries and private sectors for licensed extraction. And any revenue gotten from this should be channeled directly into the African Space Development Fund. But we realize that we're quite far away from the possibility of African countries independently or probably even in partnerships going on lunar exploration missions. And because of this, we want to lay groundwork for coordination. So we propose the creation of a lunar and space exploration agency under African Space Agency, and this would what this department, if we can call it that, would do is to oversee all lunar activities on behalf of the continent. And so this would what you do is basically activity on behalf of the continent. So we propose this because we believe that it would accelerate any potential possibilities of lunar explorations by the African continent, or rather than doing it independently, which could take years and even centuries based on how far behind we are from our Western powers and global actors. So we've said a lot about the African Space Development Fund, and I know you must be wondering how we tend to fund this. So for funding, we propose that a certain annual fund, that's the African Union's annual fund, the situational awareness hubs, and also lunar explorations. So we believe that we've seen precedents of monetary contributions to the Africa to even improve the African Union funds due to the collective benefits the they are likely to gain from this. They are likely to gain from this association of resources that will be gotten at a more cheaper cost than than it will if the operations were carried out by these individual nations. And we also like to see the African agency under the Lunar Space and Exploration Agency would international partnerships with all space station and probably even NASA. We would need these partnerships, and growth for technology that we could gain from these partnerships would be very exploration agency partake in international partnerships with countries and space stations and even interested private companies in Africa. And we also, so that's about our funding and economic mandates. We also, we mandate that the agency mostly sources technical workforce, raw materials, and policy solutions from African countries, leveraging on the success of models like the African Development Satellites Collaboration that was that African, we clearly see that it was a success. So African Space Agency as the central coordinate strict enforceable technology transfer clause. The buyers also be builders so that we're not far behind or left in the dust of our global powers and actors. So, and also because of the because of the nature explorations and nature of this exploration agency should also have illegal, also the illegal department to undo the legal framework that will deal with that. So I'll be moving on to rebuttals that were given. Firstly, I feel in terms of our idea to lunar exploration, we understand that legal frameworks for lunar frameworks or the proposals for legal frameworks would seriously be considered by international actors when we take serious strides in our lunar explorations, because we see precedents in this, in the sense that even the Outer Space Treaty was formed after the space race. That's when the US and the USSR saw potentials for arms, saw potentials for how this could possibly turn south. So that's when they developed the Outer Space Treaty. So when international actors like the US, USSR, and China see that we're making significant strides in lunar exploration, clamor for legal frameworks that would govern lunar governance and resources, lunar resource exploration and exploitation, because they would know that what we mean serious business. But if we don't even decide to take serious strides in this regard, I don't think we'll be taken serious by the international community. And I think in my speech as regards the African Space Development Fund, I think I also answered the question of collaboration with international private companies. Also, I would like to, before my other delegates will speak after me, but before he does that, I would like to also direct some rebuttals to the delegate from the Republic of Kenya. Sorry, just a minute, trying to look for that. Okay, so the Kenya's delegation. Okay, Kenya's delegation. Please, am I audible?
Yes,
you
you're
have it.
audible.
Okay, thank you. So um my question to the Kenyan delegates is that they talked a lot about how idealistic we are, but I would argue that their idea or their proposal for the establishment of a moratorium is more idealistic, because how pragmatic is how pragmatic is it? How do we intend to enforce this moratorium? Because, like we know, vision without plan or realism is just wishful thinking. So, what are your plans on implementing the moratorium with legal frameworks that are put in place? And another thing is all the lunar governance legal frameworks you proposed are very base in terms of our future in lunar points, or your proposals as regards lunar exploration, how Africa should be left behind in the dust of global powers. How can we accelerate this legal frameworks that's nothing much on lunar exploration, because on how you think we can implement lunar exploration so that we do not fall behind? Okay, I would like to use my time to my other delegates. Thank you.
Okay, that's a great one.
All right, Team Angola, thank you for your delivery. Although towards the end your line was breaking, so I couldn't hear you. But can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, I just have one question for you. You have done well, irrespective of the fact that you were, you did not have any delegates, but you did well. I just have one question for you. You talked about Pan-Africanism as a means to ensuring that UN guidelines are followed by, or you make it mandatory for all African actors, yes? Did you hear me?
No, sir, please, can you come again?
Okay, I said that when you were speaking, you talked about Pan-Africanism. You talked about it as a means for debris management, for a mitigation protocol to make all UN guidelines mandatory for African actors.
Yes, sir.
All right, good, thank you. So I just want to ask you, you are aware that Pan-Africanism implies not just African actors, it also means non-African actors, wherever they may be, beyond our shores. Did you hear me?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then moving on. And also the idea of using Pan-Africanism to make mandate.
In that context, I was talking about us needing to have a unified front
Yes.
in our
Well, I'm not done with the question. I understand what you're talking about, but I want you to address the fact, like, doesn't it seem somewhat forceful, especially when you mention centralism, centralized, somewhat forceful, as if it was, to put together a state without consideration of their sovereignty and other laws. So how do you reconcile this, especially when we're talking about the African perspective? Did you hear me?
I do not understand the question, if I'm being honest.
Okay, I'll make
No,
it
I think I did, but I don't really understand it.
right. Let me come again. So I was listening to you. You talked about making a centralized African state, or a centralized body. Sorry, not African state, a centralized body. And when I went through your this thing that was your document that was submitted, you made, let me read it word for word. So I don't, maybe it's because I'm changing it. That's why it's sounding strange to you. Pan-African debris mitigation protocol, which makes UN guidelines mandatory law for all African actors. Not so. Did you hear me? Hello, Angola, Team Angola, did you hear me? Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Network on my side must be bad.
I
Sorry, I'm very
think
sorry. My
he's still
network
on the call.
was
He's
bad,
hearing
so
you.
I don't know.
I can hear you, sir.
Okay. All right. So without
I hear you. Do you hear me loud and clear?
yes. Basically, without any equivocation, what I'm asking is that how do you plan to make this centralized body, as you speak, without infringing onto the sovereignty of African states? Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
Hello.
Okay, I guess you're thinking of it right now, right? Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm the co-delegate of Angola, and I think I would like to answer that question for my partner.
Yes.
So you asked how our mandate maybe it was too forceful and how
Network made him to cut off again.
okay. So our mandate is not sorry, what did you say?
I was just simply asking how you could impose your mandate without it coming off as forceful or imposing on the sovereignty of all African states. Because in your words, UN guidelines, mandatory law for all African actors.
Well, firstly, we can say the mandate actually levels the playing field, and without a law like that, only good states or wealthy states and external corporation we our based on the principles of Ubuntu I am because we are calling for unity, and by establishing some SSA hubs in different parts of the African, and we are also welcoming policies from other countries, and our mandate is just for we said it is mandatory just because we're trying to push for because the situation at hand it is like kind of critical, and we need only a mandatory law can actually bring something out of it, and so something rigid. That's why we are calling it mandatory. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer. That will be all. I have no more questions. That will be all. I have no more questions for Angola. Thank you.
All right, can I start my speech?
Yes, you can.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed judges, my partner has just laid out the three a vision that does not just imagine Africa's place in the cosmos but governance. So allow me to now make clear why these mandates are not only necessary but inevitable. So for the delegates of Kenya frameworks, we have enforcement of global rules and an ethical framework for lunar governance. The same global community that speak of ethics today has already begun private lunar mining, militarization of orbit, and selective licensing for their corporation. Ethics without enforcement is only decoration. Angola's mandate transformed these ideals into binding law. We are not opposing global ethics, we are enforcing them with African authority. If others can pass national space laws that regulate international behavior, why should Africa remain only an observer? Now, for the delegates of Kenya that also called for balance and mediation, they said our proposal is too strong and that we should seek balance, dialogue, and mediation. But I ask balance between what and whom, between progress and paralysis, between ownership and observation. Balance must never mean indecision. Africa cannot mediate its future into existence. We must legislate it into reality. The Pan-Africa Debris Mitigation Protocol and Lunar Licensing Agency are not instruments of control. They are instruments of collective protection. They balance the continent within itself, the North and the South sharing SSA data, the wealthy and developing states sharing cosmic dividends. This is not imbalance, this is continental symmetry. They also ask us, can we license what we do not understand? The delegation of of Kenya asked us those questions, and we would like to answer that. We do not wait to understand before governing. We understand through governance. When humanity first regulated the high seas, we do not know every ocean current. When we drafted a space law, many nations did not yet own an aircraft. But law creates learning, structure builds science, and governance invites innovations. If Africa waits to master the moon before regulating it, others will master both and sell us our access back. They also say our mandate threatens sovereignty. Okay. So shared sovereignty is not surrendered sovereignty. No nation's independence is weakened by participating in a collective defense mechanism. It is amplified. Our SSA hubs in Egypt and South Africa are not symbols of hierarchy but of unity. They give every African state access to secure sovereign data without dependence on foreign militaries or corporations. This is not a loss of autonomy. This is an expression of African orbital sovereignty. And we also understand that nations face competing priorities, education, healthcare, infrastructure. But let us compare costs. The destruction of a single satellite like our Hangusat 2 cost over $30 million. And by contrast, our ASDF, our fund, by contrast, is an insurance premium for the future and a small collective contribution to protect billions in existing infrastructure. Now, unlike the policy by the delegation of Kenya, our policy is it is not vague. Angola's lunar and space licensing agency, it is executive and operational. It licenses, it audits, and it enforces. It collects revenue from lunar extraction, not just from donor aids or annual EU budgets. Why the delegation of Kenya they proposes council for consultation, we propose a regulatory authority for action because we believe Africa does not need more observers, it needs operators. And our the delegation of Kenya also spoke of partnership with global agency, but partnership without power is dependency in disguise. Our technology transfer clause ensures that every collaboration leaves behind knowledge, not just contracts, and we welcome partnership, but only one that respects reciprocity. And okay, honorable judges and delegates, while we debate ethics, I would like to tell you that the United States has passed the Artemis Accord, granting commercial right to extract lunar resources. China has also announced plans to build a permanent lunar base. India has also landed Chandrayaan-3 on the moon's south pole. If Africa does not build its framework now, we will be regulated by others later. We do not bring a policy of defiance but of dignity. We are not rejecting cooperation, we are redefining it. And for long, Africa has been asked to wait, to watch, to mediate, to balance. But balance does not launch satellites, mediation does not protect orbits, and waiting has never built capacity. Angola's fortified mandate does not ask the world for permission, it offers the world a partner. It offers the world a partner that is prepared, principled, and proudly Africans. Africa will not only look up to the stars, Africa will also define how the stars are shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no questions for you. Thank you.
I also have no further questions. However, Mr. Co-Chair, in the spirit of equity, fairness, and justice, I would like us to do the item 6 and 7 of our order of events on the WhatsApp group, because we have only 2 teams here on this call, but we would like to hear the justifications and every other comments and observations of the remaining 10 teams, hopefully on the WhatsApp group. So I'm just suggesting we proceed straight to the closing of this event so that the items listed in 6, which is voting and justification, each delegation from each school cast a final vote for the most compelling policy. We should do that on WhatsApp where all these schools are. There are 10. Each delegation is allotted 3 minutes to explain. So they can have 3 minutes voice notes to cast the votes and also to say why or why not.
Then the results will be announced on the Futures Forum's LinkedIn page, end of the day, Kenya time today. Also, the adoption of consensus position should be done on the WhatsApp group, where we'll have at least 6 out of the 10 schools actively putting their own position. So I'm only saying if the Honorable Commissioner of the African Futures Parliament would send to the I'm we should jump straight to number 7, which is closing ceremony. And I'll be expecting the voting and justification to continue on the WhatsApp group. That will be done privately, not to our live streamers. Thank you. Just a suggestion, though.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a wonderful suggestion they have because network keeps on fluctuating and things are not going well. So yes, I do agree. We should move to the WhatsApp group.
Yes, so that will leave us to the closing remarks by the commissioner. Mr. Jeslolo, if you would like to say something about this, and the commissioner can round up so that we'll go to the WhatsApp group, expecting each team's voice note as to voting 3 minutes each. Till the end of the day, then we'll make an announcement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and the co-chair, Honorable Commissioner of this Parliament. It is a great honor and a privilege to be part of this wonderful experience. Everyone has done justice to the topics and the countries they are representing. And I think it is good to say that this is a wonderful sight and a wonderful hearing that would be a pedestal or how would I put it now? Like we are setting the pace for other countries to follow, and it's a good one for Africa. And if we can do this and continue this way, building on what we have done here, I'm very sure we would have a seat at the table, definitely. So like the suggestion is we should continue on the WhatsApp so that we can have more participation from the teams that presented earlier in this competition. Thank you so much, Chairman.
I think our commissioner is not available at the moment. In his absence, I would like to give the closing remarks by saying it was a wonderful presentation by everything from 6 African countries represented by different African youths. It's an honor to be the chair of this great parliamentary session, and I look forward to having this interactive research again next year. Like I said earlier, for the spirit of equity, fairness, and justice, we should have these votings and justifications on WhatsApp group where we have delegates from the 10 different country teams, as opposed to having it now on this call where we only have the 2 finalists. That being said, it's been an honor to interact with every one of you and learn 1 or 2 more things that I know before. Please let us remain active on the WhatsApp group, and each team, that's the 2 delegates from each team, should have 1 person choose who would give a justification or a voting as to which final policy should be adopted between Angola's policy and Kenya's policy. We'll be voting for one of Angola or Kenya's policy. So you have a 3 minutes voice note per team to say why they are the better or what it is they are lacking. And then end of the day on the Futures Forums LinkedIn page, we'll have the final announcements. Thank you very much. It's been an honor again. As we close, I would like us to close with our names, universities, and one thing we like about space. I will start with myself. My name is Bamio Dada. I'm a project manager in the space sector. one thing I like about space is the fact that it's so silent and a whole lot of things is going on